Hello, everyone. Good morning. Wave meteorologist Brian Good on this. It's a StormTALK headline today for this alert day. I'll explain why that's the case come up here in just a second. But as always, you guys can chime in. If you have any questions, let me know. There's some changes I do want to cover, though, that will cover the outlook for today and certainly the outlook for tomorrow as well. So I appreciate your patience on me. Let me try to get through at least that idea of where we stand on timing and what we're expecting to kind of change and evolve here as we hit the next 36 to 48 hours. And then let me know if you have any questions. I'm not clear on anything. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the longer term here in just a second. All right. As always, again, you can comment on Facebook, on Twitter, and on what's the other one? Or X. And what's the other? YouTube. Right. Sorry. Allergies are kicking me in the you-know-what today. So I apologize in advance. My brain's kind of all over the place. All right. So let's get into where we stand outside at the moment. And there's no doubt that the cloudy sky has been something you probably have noticed when you walked outside this morning, opened the door up. I mean, yeah, it's humid, but we're sort of getting used to humid mornings, right? We've only dropped to 78 in the city of Louisville so far. But a lot of cloud cover in the area at the moment. And these are actually the blow-off of thunderstorms that have been ongoing throughout the entire night while you were asleep. Thunderstorms producing more than 3.5 inches of rain across areas of Ohio. They're still ongoing. They have not completely run out of gas just yet, but they're getting closer. They're getting closer. You can see how they're diving toward Lexington and portions there of Frankfort and Carroll County. You guys have picked up a gust of wind out of this. The wind gauges right through here, just north of Lexington, did record about a 40-mile-per-hour wind gust with this fading area of thunderstorms that is diving again more along I-75. The western side of it is going to struggle. So there could still be a little more of a wiggle room to move west through the rest of Jefferson County, perhaps Henry County, and certainly Franklin, of course, and maybe northeast Shelby. You guys could still get a shower to that. If nothing else, you should notice the wind briefly, 30 to 40 miles per hour as that approaches. But the strongest of the wind is on this portion of the apex, which is outside of our area, just south of Lexington. This is fading out. And here's how we know that, by looking at the system from above. And this is a visible satellite looking from space. And as the sun came up, we're able to see the image of this MCS that's fading out. You see the clouds that are in our area at the moment are relatively thin overall, but it is a decent enough canopy that is creating a lot of haze at the moment. The thermometer really hasn't had too much of an impact yet. In the next 2 to 3 hours, it will start to have a little more of an impact on slowing it down just a bit more. But you notice, too, the tops of the thunderstorms right in here. You see where their shadows are cast because they stick out from the rest of the clouds. When the sun comes up, you really see the height to them that looks 3D there. Now, the sun's a little bit higher. They're not as creating as many shadows, but also at the same time, those thunderstorms are falling apart. They're getting flatter, so you don't have as many shadows because they're not as tall. But the story that I think tells the most about this setup is looking to the north. across areas of Ohio. You see how the drier air is winning out and punching in on the northern side of this MCS. So this has a ring to it. The best way I can describe it would be like this. There's a ring here, and then there's the core right in the middle of it. The core is going to fall apart. The ring will be the last thing to fade away today. That's moving through our area now. But this has got a situation now where it is dying. It's fading out. It has lost its chariot. So it will no longer be able to keep producing thunderstorms, especially to the west. It may keep going a little further to the south, but to the west, this is done. So the cloud ring on the western side is the only thing we need to track. How long does it take for that to kind of drift through the rest of the 71 corridor into Louisville, and then eventually just west of I-65 into Indiana and Kentucky? Because the core, where the X is, that is going to clear out and collapse. That's going to get us back into a much more of a sunnier setup. What does this all mean for some changes today? Well, I do think at least on the actual temperature as it looks now, it should shave off at least 1 degree on our high temperature today. But that's probably where it'll stop. I don't know if it'll have a big enough impact on the heat index just yet. The heat alerts are still out. The excessive heat warning is still out. Our alert day is still out because of the excessive heat warning that is right now includes a good chunk of wave country. Only 3 counties do not have the excessive heat warning or any heat alert. And that's Greene, Taylor, and Adair. And then Marion and Washington counties, you guys are under heat advisories. Based on the satellite image, it'll be interesting to see what happens to this portion of the alerts. If this will get changed to a heat advisory, and this may go all the way up close to Louisville, to be honest. This may go to a heat advisory, and I think Louisville and along 65 and west should stay in the excessive heat warning based on some of the numbers I've looked at so far, and even accounting for the clouds we have in the area right now and what the satellite's doing. So this is where I think we're going to go, and I've try to adjust these numbers to better reflect the current thinking. I think the thermometer is going to be slow for the next few hours, only a couple of degrees of a climb, maybe not as steep of one as we had the past couple of days. But once we see the core collapse more and more into Ohio and build in, we get back into full sun. That's when the thermometer will play catch up. I did take us to 96. We had 97. I'll take 96. Either way, I don't think it makes a huge difference. Kind of getting picky here. But the heat index should still get up there to about 105 for about 3 hours, if not a little bit longer. And there's in some cases, again, outside the city limits and away from the concrete jungle, you can get a heat index that can go up to 107, even up to 108. That would be especially if you have a farm in your area, a lot of forest nearby, you're away from a lot of concrete and interstates, you can see your heat index get up there higher than what the city will be. So this is kind of a flip-flop when we normally would think of on the heat island effect. Because it's all about the amount of moisture being produced by the plants, really more than anything. So that's the reason why the heat index is going to vary on your area. And you're going to see a different number on our maps on TV today for different counties because of that very reason. But in general, I like the idea of hovering around 105 being about the average we'll see. So as far as the heat goes, everything looks on check. I just think we'll have an interruption, a bit slower here for a few hours, and then we'll catch back up. Another change coming to the outlook will be tomorrow, because we will start off very warm tomorrow morning, because I do think we'll have some clouds may redevelop later tonight, early tomorrow. The thermometer in the city of Louisville is very unlikely to go below 81 or 82 all night long. That's going to make it a little tough on the AC units for tonight, early on Friday. But here's the difference for your Friday. We are going to get hot. Excessive heat is likely. But there will be a little more of a trigger for showers and storms. You can see that we get close to 100 degrees. I don't know if we'll hit 100, but I think 98 is still good for that. I think the excessive heat warning is still good to get us above 105 for heat index. But now the radar begins to light up, and this is where it gets a little weird. And bear with me on this. Because we have 2 different ways the storms can really impact us on Friday, it's going to be a little bit of a whiplash. Once we get into Friday afternoon, and right now, it's going to take until the heating of the day to get storms to fire. So it's going to take until 4 or 5 o'clock to build up the heat bubble, if you will. Once we get past that point, the storms will go. Where they will go, that's a good question. We don't know yet if it'll be north of 64, along 64, or just south. It depends on which model you want to look at here. But I like the idea of what their models are trying to do, and that is that the first run of storms is going to be moving in backwards, coming in from eastern Kentucky. They will likely build, head west, these storms either will pop over us to the west or they will be moving to the east. So there's a bit of a collision here happening between storm complexes, depending on which side of I-65 you live on. I think at the moment, the severe risk is warranted. I think you can get some damaging winds in this kind of scenario, but very heavy rainfall, especially if you end up seeing these collide, you get some very heavy rain. But this is going to really change the thermometer. Look at the temperature map at 6 p.m. tomorrow. This is just looking at the NAM, which, by the way, NAM has done great in the past 24 hours. But look at the temperature difference. Frankfurt, 95. Lexington, 77. E-Town, 75. Louisville, 98. Again, that's not just general highs for the day. That's because of the rain moving in. So these are certainly heat busters that can develop. That's the reason why tomorrow's forecast still looks good at 98, but it's a race against the clock on how fast the storms hit. If they take too long to hit, certainly the city of Louisville, we could go for the record of 100. It's possible. And obviously, this thing can be said if they get here too fast. Either way, storms will walk through the area. We need the rainfall. We just don't want all the noise it'll create. And hopefully it doesn't cause too many problems with all the area football games, the ones that are still ongoing. Some have been canceled because of the heat. So if it's not the heat, it'll be the storms that will cause a problem for the games. But the storms will continue. They'll begin to fade out slowly, but most of the motion for the overnight period will indeed be back to normal of west to east, as we'll likely see the storms track for overnight, Friday night, and parts of Saturday, but not as much coverage expected. Once the front sinks south of us, we'll end the storm chance, but that may take until sometime Saturday night. So the Storm Prediction Center does have us kind of swipe there across the area for a low-end severe risk. I could see why, because it's tough to really pick out the idea of organized storms in this scenario, because it's like playing bumper cars again. But this, I always struggle showing a low-end risk, because I think people think that means that the storms will be low-end, and that's not necessarily the truth. This is an outlook for organized severe weather. You can still get a severe thunderstorm producing some very strong winds that can cause damage in the area, even if it's a marginal risk. This is just a map that displays the organization of them when they form, and I think it won't be overly organized. I think it's going to be a little chaotic. So that's the reason why that potential is low. So just kind of be aware of that as we get into your Friday, that it's going to be a changeable day, and we'll look at this again tomorrow on the blog and see where we stand after that point. Once we get past that, we calm things down to Sunday and Monday. There's one more front that will move in Tuesday night and Wednesday. This one, I don't think it's going to have a whole lot of moisture to work with, but it has, look at that rain snow line again showing up across Canada there. Yeah, this is quite the dip in the jet. This may send us for maybe 2 or 3 days next week with highs in the 70s. I think that is possible. Lows in the 50s. So a nice little cool taste of air coming back, as they have been so far this year. They don't stick around very long, but I do think it'll be about Tuesday into Wednesday that will dip through the area. Just don't think it's going to have a lot of rain. More importantly, you see what's happening here is Hurricane Franklin at this point near Bermuda. And then we will have Adelia more than likely on the map into the Gulf of Mexico. Just don't know yet if there's going to be a tropical storm or a hurricane, or if it's going to be on the west coast of Florida. It's going to hit Tampa, if it's going to hit Destin or the Panhandle. I don't know. I can tell you that the atmosphere, though, the pattern is prime for a tropical system to form in that area of the Gulf of Mexico. And it really just depends on our front that moves into the area as we head into, say, next Tuesday or Wednesday, on how much of a turn that would take to head off to the eastern seaboard. But it's something worth watching. I really do. But that is, if you have vacation plans for the Carolina coast of Florida next week into Labor Day holiday weekend, just be aware. So there you go. That's where we stand. Any quick questions I can answer, then I have to run, unfortunately. You're welcome, Dave. Anytime. Yeah, Susie, in some cases, it does feel a little cooler up there, but again, your heat index is probably going to be higher. Your actual temperature may not be as high. That's the difference on that. Natasha, let's see. No rain for Jefferson County, Indiana. Other than a sprinkle from this little outer edge it's trying to move in this morning, no, your rain chance will be tomorrow, if anything at all. Ashley, should it be worried about tomorrow or not? It's a straight line wind event scenario. If anything can develop there, Ashley, so I wouldn't worry at this point. Everything looks okay. We'll just kind of keep an eye on an hourly basis. All right. Sorry, guys. Sorry I have to run, but I think we got to get into some news headlines here. Myra is standing by here in just a second with an update there. So tune into the news portion of the weather app, or the news portion of the app, for more on that. I will see you guys with a full update coming up today. at midday. As always, appreciate you all. Have a good one. I'll see you on the flip side today.